I live in Lake Helen, Florida, and we have had several incidents that I didn't put together until I ran across the story of the recent sightings. My daughter and I share our home with 2 golden retrievers. It's not uncommon for my female to not want to go outside due to her nightly business for no apparent reason. Now, maybe there is. My daughter and I were in my bedroom around 9 p.m. one night when something slapped the side of the house so hard that it shook it. We looked around from inside but saw nothing. 3 days later, at about 3 in the morning, my daughter in her bedroom, directly above my bedroom, sharing the outside wall, woke up to a loud house shaking slam, following by a loud growl. Her feet hit the floor upstairs at the same time mine hit the downstairs. We assumed it was just a bear, but never could figure out why a bear would hit the house and how it could hit hard enough to shake the entire house, waking us up both. This was shortly after February, in the wintertime. There were also reports in the adjacent area, which is a community within Lake Helen. Where this happened was within walking distance of each other, and the adjacent areas there have been other sightings. I don't recall any specific weather conditions, but I can tell you it was pitch black outside. First time was around 9 p.m., and second around 3. There was actually a follow-up investigation. The witness and her daughter live in Lake Helen, an area that has a rich history of Sasquatch activity. In fact, there was so much activity that in the 70s, that the town now refers to the creature as the Mole Man. The witness is aware of the Mole Man stories, but hasn't put much faith in them until recently. On the night of February 24th, 2013, around 9 p.m., the witness and her daughter were getting ready for bed. Both were in the bathroom, talking, when something hit the side of the house. It was so loud and powerful, the wood frame of the house shook. Thinking someone might be trying to break in, they turned on all the outside lights, looked through the windows, and saw nothing, but called the police. The police looked around outside with flashlights, did not find anything. A few nights later, at about 3 a.m., they were both awakened by another house-shaking slam to the house, followed by a loud, deep growl. In both cases, the house slam came from the same area, just under the master bedroom window. I spoke with the witness, then visited her property shortly after the incidents. The property is just about a half a mile from the 1970s Mole Man Orange Grove reports. It is just over a mile away from the Mole Man reports from the summer of 2012. That is in a separate report. The property is heavily wooded, as is the entire area. A power line road runs alongside the backside of her property. She has a compost pile that she adds leftover food to, several berry trees, and has never had anything like this happen in the many years she has lived there. Me and my buddy were out in the woods hunting in Pearson, Florida, on 9 Mile Road. We were driving out, and I noticed something big and brown in the ditch on the side of the road, crouching down. Then it stood up and walked back and forth across the road. Then, crouching back down, we know for a fact it wasn't a human. It seemed to be about 9 feet tall. It was about 5:30, 20 minutes before dark. In fact, there was also another follow-up investigation on this report. The man who spoke with the hunter, who was an avid outdoorsman, about his late afternoon sighting. He was hunting with a friend, but his friend went off in another direction, and then this occurred, so he was alone at the time of this sighting. The hunter was hog hunting in a very heavily wooded wildlife management area near Lake George. He heard bushes rustling, turned, and saw a human but ape-like face and shoulders squatting behind bushes. The gentleman has seen bear in the area and knows what he saw was indeed not a bear. It was 15 to 20 yards away, and when the creature was standing, It was much taller than his 6'5" frame. He estimates more like 8 to 9 feet. It had a flat nose, not like a human, but seemed to have other humanoid features. He watched it for a minute and a half behind the bushes before it stood again, turned, and quickly walked away on 2 legs, towards the swamp. It was dark brown, mixed black hair in color. Heavy foliage blocked him from getting a better view of the creature's lower body. When it briskly walked away, heavy footsteps could be heard. It did not vocalize. The hunter smelt an odor similar to that of a wild hog odor, but much stronger and heavier during the encounter. He was hunting in that place because of the smell. He thought there was hog in the vicinity. After the creature walks away, the hunter left the area too. It was startling, at least for him, and although he had a gun, the creature's size was intimidating, and he did not wish to investigate further. The area of this encounter was in Lake George State Forest, which is part of 2 wildlife management areas, with more than 20,000 acres of virgin longleaf/pine, bald cypress, and other bottomland hardwood hammock forests. During the wet season, there are also marshy floodplain areas, along with this national forest. This joins part of a network of protected lands, forming a wildlife corridor and roaming habitat for Florida black bear. Other species of wildlife that call the area in the vicinity home include white-tailed deer, turkey, bobcat, and of course feral hog. There is currently another encounter that is being investigated in the same area. It is safe to say that Sasquatch or skunk ape activity is well and alive. A friend and I were fishing late into the night and early morning in a remote area between Ormond Beach and Flagler Beach, next to a small bridge on Walter Boardman Lane. The friend of mine noticed a set of eyes shining in the woods while looking down a very small trail. We were wearing headband-style flashlights, and he told me to go check it out. As I looked down the trail, it was very obvious to me that the eyes were far enough apart and high enough off the ground to justify being concerned. I convinced myself and my friend that, whatever it may be, it's more afraid of us than we are of it. A while later, maybe 20 minutes or so, he mentioned that it was still there staring at us. I walked slightly closer to the opening of the trail in an attempt to make out what it may have been, but still couldn't tell. A few minutes goes by. Same thing. It was still there and still staring towards us. I tried to make noise and decided to yell at it. It apparently wasn't too concerned because it didn't so much as blink or move. We again convinced ourselves that it was nothing to be afraid of. We continued with fishing, and not long after, my friend notices that it had finally moved on. We thought nothing more of it until I got the biggest scare of my adult life. As I was standing there, something let out the deepest, slowest growl that I have ever heard in my life. It sounded as though it was standing directly behind me and very close. I turned to look at my friend, and the look on his face told me that I was certainly not hearing things. Without a second thought, or even a spoken word, we drop our fishing poles and run as fast as we could to the truck. We jumped in, locked up tight. My first question was if he had heard it, and his response was, "Yeah, what was that?" We were so scared that we weren't sure what to do. The decision was made a couple of minutes later to start the truck, turn on the headlights. He raced the engine, blew the horn repeatedly. Even after a few moments of doing this, and feeling sure that whatever it was had to have left the area, we were still very hesitant to retrieve our fishing gear. After a long while of deciding, we very quickly jumped out, threw our things into the back of the truck, and left. We had both lived in Florida for some time. We spent a lot of time on the water and in the woods, fishing, camping, all in remote locations. Never before, never have I heard anything like that. I can say for a fact that 100% it was not an alligator or a bear. Beyond that, I have no idea. I do know whatever it is may have been convinced two grown men, both of them, to immediately go out and purchase handguns to carry during each and every future outing. Not sure where the sound clips of the growls come from on the Finding Bigfoot television series, but they're about the closest thing I've heard of to the sound I heard that night. The only other detail that stands out to this day is that we had a buffet of shrimp, chicken gizzards, and livers, cut up fish sitting on the tailgate of the truck. On the 19th of May 2007, at around 8:30 a.m., my wife and I were on our way to the local bait shop on the Flagler County line in Central Florida. Our usual route to the shop at High Bridge Road is via Old Dixie Highway through Walter Boardman, also known as the Loop. I was turning left off Old Dixie onto Walter Boardman, and I looked ahead on the road and saw two vehicles approximately half a mile in front of me on Walter Boardman. At that instant, behind the vehicle closest to me, I saw a tall, dark figure on two legs swiftly cross the road from south to north. The figure that I saw was taller than the vehicle ahead of it, and it appeared to cross the road in 3 or 4 stiff-legged strides. I said to my wife, "Did you see that?" She replied that she had not, as she was looking for something in her purse. By that time, whatever it was already in the woods. So I sped up to reach the area where the figure crossed the road. My wife and I scanned the entirety of the woods where it had disappeared, saw no trace of it. I knew right away, though, that this was not a regular animal or man. It was extremely tall, dark and fast, although it did not appear to be running. The strides covered a great distance. We continued towards our destination and had arrived at a plantation, a state park where we fish. I won't mention the name. We mentioned what I had seen to the ranger, who dismissed it as a simple black bear. I disagree. It was lean and too fast to be a bear walking on hind legs. I wish that I could have gotten a better look up close, but I have and will continue to look carefully as I drive the loop for another sighting of this very interesting creature. A follow-up investigation report was done. This witness saw a tall, dark figure cross the road, right after a red pickup truck that was a half a mile ahead of it passed it. The figure was approximately 2 to 3 feet taller than the truck and walked bipedally on 2 legs, the estimated height to be around 7 to 9 feet tall. He has lived in such areas like Alaska and is very familiar with seeing bears. He firmly stated that this was not a bear sighting. The witness has visited this location several times to look for evidence, but with no success. The Plantation Ruins State Park is 150 acres through the Bulow Creek, travels before it empties in the Tomoka Basin. The park is a part of the Greenway Corridor that connects the nearby North Peninsula Recreation Area on the coast.